How many members of the draft classes of 2018, 2017 and 2016 remain? Read on to find out. Roster cutdown weekend wasn't the whirlwind in 2018 for the Seahawks that it was a year ago, when Seattle made trades to acquire Sheldon Richardson and Justin Coleman, sending out receiver Jermaine Kearse along the way. Still, the Seahawks pulled off 2 trades and made a couple of somewhat surprising cuts as they set their roster at the regular season limit of 53 on Saturday. Here's a by-the-numbers review of how it looked once the dust settled. 4. That's the number of players left on the roster who have been with the team continuously since the Super Bowl loss to New England: quarterback Russell Wilson, receiver Doug Baldwin and linebackers KJ Wright and Bobby Wagner. That number rises to 5 if you include offensive lineman J.R. Sweezy, who is back on the roster after spending the last 2 years in Tampa Bay. Cornerback Byron Maxwell, who like Sweezy left and returned, was placed on injured reserve and is done for the season. And Earl Thomas remains on the reserve, did not report list, with no sign of the impasse lifting anytime soon. 25. The number of offensive and defensive players on what is as well-rounded a roster from that standpoint as you can get. Add in 3 specialists and you get 53. 1. The number of undrafted rookie free agents who made the roster: defensive tackle Poona Ford of Texas. Seattle has a long history of rookie UDFAs who have become significant contributors, with Baldwin the most notable of the Carroll era. Kearse is another. 7. That's how many members of the 2018 rookie draft class that remain on the roster out of the 9 who were picked: running back Rashad Penny, defensive lineman Rasheem Green, tight end Wildus Lee, linebacker Shaquem Griffin, cornerback Trey Flowers, punter Michael Dixon and defensive end, linebacker Jacob Martin. Another, offensive lineman Jamarco Jones, was placed on injured reserve after recently having ankle surgery. The other is quarterback Alex McGough, who was waived after the team acquired Brett Hundley last week to be the backup to Wilson. But the Seahawks are expecting to re-sign McGough to the practice squad. 7. That's the number of players on the 53-man roster from the 11-man 2017 draft class. 2 were already gone: defensive lineman Malik McDowell and offensive tackle Justin Sr. The Seahawks waived 2 more on Saturday: 3rd-round receiver Amara Darboh and 6th-round defensive back Mike Tyson. Darboh was one of the most discussed players of training camp in terms of whether he would make the roster. Ultimately, injuries made the call. Darboh was unable to play in any of the 4 exhibition games. The Seahawks did not waive Darboh as injured and are hoping to get him back on the practice squad. The 7 who remain from the 2017 class: guard Ethan Pochak, cornerback Shaquille Griffin, safeties Delano Hill and Tedrick Thompson, defensive tackle Nasir Jones, receiver David Moore and running back Chris Carson. Pochak, Griffin, Thompson and Carson could all be starters in the opener against Denver, with Moore and Jones ticketed for key roles. 7. That's what is left on the active roster of the 10-man draft class of 2016. Right tackle Jermaine Ifedi, defensive tackle Jaron Reed, running back CJ Prosize, tight end Nick Vannett, offensive lineman Reese Odiembo, defensive tackle Quinton Jefferson and offensive lineman Joey Hunt. 3 players are long departed: running backs Alex Collins and Zach Brooks and receiver Kenny Lawler. There was much talk in the preseason about the future of Prosize, but he stayed largely healthy, catching a team-high 10 passes for 51 yards and playing extensively on special teams. Seattle also needed the numbers at tailback, with J.D. McKissick remaining on the 53-man roster but likely out for the first few games after suffering a broken foot. 7. And, well, there's a theme here, that is how many from the classes of 2010 to 15 remained on the active roster after the weekend. 2015 draftees Frank Clark and Tyler Lockett, 2014 draftee Justin Britt, 2012 draftees Wilson, Wagner and Sweezy, and 2011 draftee Wright. 2. Trades made by the Seahawks Saturday. In the first, Seattle dealt receiver Marcus Johnson to the Colts for tight end Darrell Daniels, who played at the University of Washington. The move gave Seattle 3 tight ends on its 53-man roster, with Ed Dixon remaining on the non-football injury list and out at least 6 weeks. In the second, the Seahawks traded a 2019 7th-round pick to the Raiders for safety Shalom Luani, who played at Washington State. Luani basically replaces veteran Maurice Alexander, who was one of the few mild surprises among the cut players. One thought is that the Seahawks like the physicality of Luani, something they didn't really see out of Alexander. 4. Number of picks the Seahawks have in the 2019 draft after dealing a 6th-rounder last week for Hundley and the pick to the Raiders for Luani. Seattle was already without its 2nd-round pick, sent last year to Houston as part of the Dwayne Brown deal. Seattle isn't expected to give any compensatory picks for losing free agents. But Seattle always seems to find a way to acquire more picks once the draft rolls around. 6 and 5. The numbers of running backs, if you include fullback Trey Madden, and receivers Seattle has on its roster. So is that a sign of the team's stated renewed commitment to the running game? Maybe. The Seahawks are sure to try to re-sign a few of the receivers waived Saturday, such as Darboh, Keenan Reynolds and Demorie Stringfellow, to keep them within easy reach. And as noted, keeping 5 tailbacks may have also been a function of injuries, with McKissick out and Penny having played only 1 game in the preseason due to a dislocated finger. 4. That's the number of players age 30 and up on the roster. Brown, 33, receiver Brandon Marshall, 34, defensive tackle Tom Johnson, 34, and kicker Sebastian Janikowski, 40. Interestingly, that's the same number of 30-plus players Seattle had on its active roster at the end of the 2017 season. Brown, Michael Bennett, punter John Ryan and linebacker Michael Will Hoyt. 10. That's the number of players the Seahawks can re-sign to their practice squad beginning Sunday afternoon. Those players must clear waivers first. As noted, likely candidates include Darboh, McGow, Reynolds and Stringfellow, as well as maybe Tyson and offensive lineman Jordan Roos and Skylar Phillips and cornerback Akeem King.